guys, this is Zero Gaming here. Welcome back to my channel, and let's talk about another episode of the Cydia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. I have been entirely busy these few days, plus a little bit of procrastinating, so I haven't been getting into Rydia's and Trey's kit, even though I did Ramza and Zack last week, I think. But nonetheless, I think that the break that we get from this week is actually pretty good. It's pretty helpful for me since I have been so tight with my schedule lately, but luckily I am able to actually complete this before tomorrow. So let's get into details here. So Rydia essentially get a rework on her skill. Her skill 1 now does a 4 single target HP attack with 50% splash. Her skill 2, which enchant the entire party with water elemental and imperil the enemy. It's now a 2 AoE split HP attack. She get her crystal level 90 upgrade as well, with her EX now being a 3 AoE full HP attack and ignore any form of defense, and improve her EX buff, which now retains 30% of her bravery after HP attack, which is quite similar with lock mechanism in that sense. Her additional ability of course get the upgrade now extended to 7 turns, which now provides a 20% party weakness damage up and a 20% party brave damage limit up, and also provides a 10% party overflow. So now Rydia gets her newest LD, which now is a 4 AoE split HP attack, ignore defense attack as well, and has a new LD buff which provide her herself a 20% self attack, 20% self HP damage, and 20% self overflow up. It also provides the same buff to the entire party, but it's stacked with her own buff. So basically she's gonna get 40% of all of those stats and 20% to the entire party. Along with all this buff, she also came with a new LD debuff which is called Weak. It basically forced the enemy to have water elemental resist down. What I mean that is, even though if the enemy absorb water damage, Rydia's LD debuff just doesn't care. So for this instance, Leviathan, which actually absorb water damage, being that it is a water elemental creature, but Rydia's LD debuff just lands on the enemy and allows the entire party to hit weakness with water elemental attack. Although to be honest, there's not exactly any newer stages in the upcoming era that actually has this restriction on water elemental damage and water elemental imperil. So I don't think if you're pulling for this unique effect alone, you might want to go back into older stages to use it, because newer stages doesn't exactly has a stage which you can completely showcase its effect, except Leviathan itself of course. And I think according to Sine Wave, there's only one stages that actually has this limitation where you can utilize her LD to fully ignore that limitation. But other than that, I don't think that's a unique situation where her LD is needed. So the other thing about her LD is actually the buff that she provides to the entire party, which is called Blink buff. It basically provides 100% evasion to the entire party and is a no turn duration buff. The buff comes in 3 stacks, and each stack reduces when the individual evades an attack. So the buff doesn't tie to the entire party, it goes individually. So as long as the attack is not received from the party, basically the buff will not expire. This is actually quite unique and actually solidify Rydia's utility in the party itself. Although it might be quite situational, but the fact that Rydia's LD buff also provides to the entire party during her LD call ability just solidify her as a very good utility LD call unit. I'm actually quite surprised people don't actually appreciate Rydia in this era. So basically, I actually looked into Facebook, Reddit and everything, and I realized that people actually wanted Anna Cross more than Rydia, and that is actually quite surprising to me, to be honest, because I actually use Rydia call a lot more than I use Anna Cross call or hit her in the party itself. So I think, in my opinion, I actually wanted Rydia a lot more. Rydia's call is so clutch to me in many situations, alongside Raijin's of course. So I definitely want to go for Rydia here, and I'm hoping I could get her. Anyway, Rydia is a very unique unit. She's a semi-damage dealer with party utility. Her aura is, for me, is quite mediocre to be considered as a support, but yet her damage itself is not significant enough to be a main damage dealer. And what's weird about her is her high armor is actually selfish, which means that it boosts her own brave damage limit and HP damage limit, which kind of makes me wonder, Square Enix actually wanted to make her a main DPS but sort of put her in the support department with certain utilities that help the entire party. But anyway, I think the most disappointing part about Rydia is not actually her role, her confusing role as a DPS or a support, but the fact that her LD animation is like Yuna, which basically doesn't change a lot from her EX animation. I remember how everyone was so happy when Rydia got her LD animation rework, which now features her Mist Dragon, and the fact that her LD also used the same animation, just different position and everything, just makes it kind of lazy, I guess, for the animation team. I mean, Rydia is a summoner in her own game, and she summoned a lot more than just Mist Dragon. I mean, granted, although Mist Dragon is her signature summon, but she does a lot more in the original game, so I definitely would expect more from just the same animation. Even with Mist Dragon, I was expecting something like you can create a mist, or you can showcase the mist attack since the blink is tied to the mist effect itself. But anyway, I guess that's the most disappointing part about her LD. And the best part, like I mentioned about Rydia, is her LD call actually applied that clutch buff to the entire party. The blink is still very good in my opinion, although it's not widely used or it's quite niche in certain situations, but definitely a lot more worthwhile during the FR era where the enemy just likes to attack you off turn. So I do recommend looking into that if you want to go for her. Now she's also quite flexible to be slotted into the party with that false resist style, although like I mentioned before, you don't have a lot of stages that require such mechanism, but with her in the party you basically don't have to worry about the enemy having water resist up or water absorption. Yeah. As for best friend, naturally she can pair really well with Garnet, which enchant the entire party with water elemental as well. Garnet issue is always her in peril not having frame, so it's easy to fall off with unit that has, when she run with unit that can lance a lot of debuff. So I think Rydia's kit can actually help her in this one. Other than that, like I mentioned, she's flexible to be slotted into a third unit into any party because of her more flexible role in the party itself. And if you're not trying to be counterproductive, definitely not run her with unit that can evade attack themselves. For example, H, which is weird because Rydia and H actually goes really well together in the original game. So H, Galoof, and Lilia are some prime example. They already dodge attack. They don't require Rydia to actually help them in that department. And of course, don't run her with tanks that actually want to be attacked. For example, Oren or Snow. Yeah, so Rydia's missing, having Rydia boosting their evasion rate is definitely not helping them to deal more damage to the enemy. Although, like I said, you still can use it with them on a clutch situation where if you want to evade a very huge attack. But other than that, yeah, it's definitely not very productive to run them together. Moving on from Rydia, we have Trey, which gets his rework and his crystal level 90. So Trey's skill 1 and skill 2 only get reworked at 2 charges. So basically you will need to charge him with Trey's turn to gain that charge. So don't use it unless you have 2 charge. Otherwise it's just the inferior version. His skill 1 is basically a 2 AoE split HP attack and the arrow shower, which will trigger for 3 turns. After that, it's a follow-up attack that deals full HP damage now and has more bravery attack. His skill 2 is now a 2 single target HP attack with 50% splash, and the dynamite follow-up attack, which occur after 2 turns, now has more bravery attack. Other than that, doesn't have much changes. The LD from Trey now is a 4 single target HP attack with 50% splash, and the trap attack from his LD now deals 2 single target HP attack. His EX with the Crystal Level 90 upgrade now does a 3 AoE split HP attack and add 20% HP damage up to his EX buff, and when targeting debuff enemy provides a 50% brave damage up. His additional ability now extend up to 12 turns. Of course, recover his skill 1 and skill 2 and provide a 40% attack and 40% brave damage limit up. So Trey basically is a off-turn trap DPS, but the unique part about his trap is not all of his trap actually triggers when the enemy get turns. He just need more turns, that's it. He just need the party to get turns as well to trigger his skill 1 and skill 2 follow-up attack, although the LD does tie to the enemy's turn. He's a very decent off-turn battery, I guess, because his skill 1 actually, the arrow shower from his skill 1 actually batteries the entire party for 3 consecutive turns, so that's pretty decent. Also, for those who never used Trey before, he actually allows the entire party to insta-break the enemy with his EX debuff, so that might be really good if you want to use that mechanism. The worst part about Trey though is the fact that only his 2 charge attack improve. I mean, you basically won't be using his charge 1 and no charge, I guess, because since you can easily charge it with every alternating attack, but it does feel a little bit underwhelming in that sense. Trey does have a very good casual orb maintenance for orb that actually requires bravery hit, since his attack goes off even during your own party's turn, so in that sense he can manage the orb pretty well. One very good example is this stage with Cloud and Squall, since the enemies, if you're not planning to let the enemy get too much turn, or if you're not running units that delay, since like I mentioned before, it's counterproductive to delay the enemy when it requires them to take turns, otherwise they will warp in. So Trey can actually maintain the orb itself in that sense. So Trey, as for units that goes well with Trey, I would say Ram, since Trey requires more turn to charge his skill up to 2 charge. So more turns also equal to more traps or more damage, and since Trey's damage actually relies on party's turn instead of the enemy's turn, so you don't have to worry about that or worry about him getting too much turn without the enemy getting turns at all. Although if you want Trey to be a trap focused damage dealer, you can also run him with trap users or counters, for example Oren, Firion, Vanille, or even Maria. Or you can actually run him with battery units to maximize every off-turn attack, since he doesn't battery himself before the attack. One of the very prime example is the upcoming unit, which is Steiner, which actually batteries the entire party every turn, so that is quite good to take into consideration for that team composition. I would say Trey is not exactly too compatible with Turn Hoggers. Granted that the Turn Hoggers can also trigger his trap, but you want Trey to then get a turn to reactivate the trap again, so it's better to have Trey going normally, taking turns himself instead of having someone just steal off his turn. So yes, that is definitely my opinion on Trey. So regarding this banner, I myself would actually wanted to try for Rydia, and I definitely hope I can get Zach's LD and maybe his BT as well. I'm not sure, I'm still a little bit on the fence whether to green him. I actually spent quite a lot of resources to green Squall and Cloud. It's not about just the BT ingots, but also the blue armor token as well, since I use it all, and I don't actually want to green a unit if I can't blue armor token them. So I think Zach might be put on hold even if I get his BT, but Ramza is definitely my main priority there. As for Rydia and Trey, I don't really care for Trey, I guess. I might pull for Trey in my alternate account, since my alternate account try to focus more on often damage dealer. As for Rydia, I definitely want to go for her in this main account. Maybe not the alternate, but the main account is definitely a main priority to get Rydia. I might even put gems in this banner, considering the fact that I don't have Zach's LD, since I've been putting it off for this banner itself. So I guess we'll see how it goes. What about you guys? Are you guys planning to pull for this banner? I guess a lot of people would actually green both Zach and Ramza. For my case, Zach is good, like I said, but he's just not very interesting to use anymore, since I actually overuse him in JP. So let me know what you guys think about this 2 unit. Outside the BT user itself, are you guys going to pull for any of these 2, or are you guys going to blue armor them, or actually focus us on building them? Let me know down in the comments below, and thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video tomorrow. Cheers guys.